Good morning, Rabbi Isai. You nishmasi mi merosirus bas Mordechai. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Tanu Rabbanon. Like 17 lines from the bottom of Nun Zayin Omud Beis. Minayin lemalam b'sar chatos. There are parts of the animal that you put on the mizbeach. There are parts of the karbonos that you eat. The parts that you are permitted to eat, and you put it on the mizbeach, it's a big no-no. It's what we call a lav. How do you know it's a lav? How do you know it's a issa d'oraisa? The kohen gets a portion, you can bring it home and eat it. Not home, you can eat it in the Beis Hamikdash, whatever. Usually. Sometimes you could bring it home, maybe. How do you know that if you put it on the mizbeach, you're over? Menayin lemalim b'sar chatos. So do the math with me. We're talking about kochi kochim here. So chatos. Chatos, we know part of it, the kohen gets to eat. You put that part on the mizbeach, no good. B'sar asham, he gets to eat a little bit of the asham, no good. What's left from kochi kochim? Oila. Oila you can't eat. So now what's the next one? If you know this, don't answer. I'm saying if you're looking in the Schattenstein over there. Umebsar kochi akodoshim. What else is kochi kochim? What else is on the list? We did most of the list already. We did chatos, asham, oila. There's only one more. Shalmi tzibur. What's shalmi tzibur? When do you give shalmi tzibur? On Shavuos. On Shavuos. So that's the fourth one. So here we go. Here's the list of kochi kochim. Chatos, asham, oila is not counted. The entire thing goes on the mizbeach. Shalmi tzibur, that's the only one that's left. That's what it's called. Kochi Kedoshim. Now, when we Kochim Kalim, is the whole list on the left. The Shlamim, Toy the Nose of B'chor Meiser. These are all, obviously, the Kohen gets to eat from it. So if you put any of the Kochim Kalim on the Mizbeach, you Oiver, Umimoisar Oimer, and the leftover of the Oimer that goes again to the Kehanim, Umimoisar Shtei Alechem, the two breads on Shavuos that the Kohanim get to eat. Lechem Aponim, that the Lechem Aponim they get to eat on Shabbos, the Kohanim. You take a Lechem Aponim and put on the Mizbeach, no. Umeshiyari Menachos, and all the leftovers of the Mincha, the Kmitza goes on the Mizbeach, but the leftover goes to the Kohanim. If you put the Shirayim on the Mizbeach, Shehu B'loisa Se'yoiver and Alav, Talmud Loimar, and we had this, if you're with us in Zvachim, so you remember this, Talmud Loimar Kichol Sa'or V'chol Devash, Lo Yisaktir Mimenu Ishel Hashem. Kichol Sa'or, all the leavening agents, the sourdough, V'chol Dvash, Rabbi Isai, who here knows what Dvash is? What's Dvash?
Date honey.
Date honey. What else? That's it. So you're not allowed to put on the Mizbeach date honey. What about an orange? It's not honey. You're allowed to put an orange on the Mizbeach?
No pears. No fruit.
Dvash over here means fruit. Typically, dvash means date honey. Because in the Shivas Aminim, dvash, not today. Now it means dvash, v'chol dvash, and I'll put any fruit. You can't put grapes, you can't put apples. So the Gemara Darshans, we're in the middle of the drasha. Anything that you put onto the fire, whatever's left over, you're over on bal taktiru. As long as you put some of it on the mizbeach, then the leftover you're over if you put on the mizbeach on a bal taktiru. Says Gemara, wait a minute. Part of the list is the breads. You don't put any of it on the mizbeach. You don't put a little part of the lechem aponim on the mizbeach. So it doesn't fit into this isser. The isser is, if you put part of it on the mizbeach, that's what you're supposed to do. You take the chatos, you put the imurim on the mizbeach, so whatever's left over, you're not allowed to put on the mizbeach. Bal taktiru. But lechem aponim, there's no part of it that goes on the mizbeach. Huh? Shtei alechem also. Shtei alechem. Lechem aponim. Yesh mehem liishim. No, it's focused on lechem aponim because people recognize it more. But Tanya, we learned yotzu shtei alechem v'lechem aponim. So now we're talking about Haggash over here. V'tanya yotzu shtei alechem v'lechem aponim she'im mehem liishim. There's no Haggasha when it comes to the lechem aponim, the shtei alechem. You don't bring the breads to the southwest corner. You don't touch it. Why? She'emem leishim. It says beforish, there's nothing that goes in the fire. If nothing goes in the fire, then we have a problem. Look, there's no hagasha because nothing goes in the fire, so there shouldn't be an isser to put it on the mizbeach. Nothing goes in the fire. You need to start with something. Something that part of it goes on the fire, then the other part cannot go on the fire. Then there's isser to put on the mizbeach. But lechem aponim and shtei lechem have zero that goes in the fire. How do I know? Because it says by hagasha that the reason why there's no hagasha is because nothing goes on the fire. Oh, so nothing goes on the fire. There shouldn't be a big isser to put it on the fire. Omer Rav Sheishes, Ei megufar liishim. He says, oh, you're right. When it comes to hagasha, there's nothing from within the lechem aponim. You don't take any part of the lechem aponim and put it on the mizbeach, and therefore what? There's no hagasha. But what does go on the mizbeach when it comes to the lechem aponim, Rabbi Yisai? The bezichim, the levaina that's in the 2 spoonfuls. That's enough to consider it shirayim. In other words, when I'm looking at the lechem aponim, there's a matir. The shtei alechem also there's a matir. The karbonos go on the. So since there's a matir, what's a matir? Something that allows you to eat the lechem aponim. What allows you to eat the lechem aponim? When you put the levaina, you put the frankincense. Maybe I even have some over here. Oh no. Nisht. Oh, here it is. You take some of this, 2 spoons of this, and you put it on the mizbeach. That allows me to eat the lechem aponim. So the lechem aponim is the leftover of this. In terms of the pasuk that you should not put the leftover on the mizbeach, that's enough to be over on lechem aponim. In terms of kosher mimenu lishim, it's good. In terms of hagasha, no, it doesn't work for hagasha. A megufoy lishim, for hagasha you need from its own self. Itmar. Another sugya. What about if you don't put it on the actual mizbeach, you don't put it over here, you go up the ramp, leave it on the ramp. Is the ramp considered the mizbeach? Rabbi Yochanan chayav. Rabbi Elazar Omar Potter. Rabbi Yochanan says the ramp is considered like the mizbeach. Rabbi Elazar says no. Rabbi Yochanan chayav. This how you mizbeach in the other mizbeach. Kevish minayin. How do I know the ramp is considered part of it? Talmud loymar ve'el mizbeach leyalu. There's a double lashon basically, because if you look at the pasuk, it says in pasuk Yud Aleph kichol tzalav v'chol dvash loisak tiru. You shouldn't put it on the mizbeach. And in pasuk Yud Beis it says loyalu ve'el mizbeach leyalu. So why does the Torah say it again? To teach us that the kevish is also considered. Rabbi Elazar Omar Potter, my time at Dom across Sa'ir Dvash, Korban Reishis Takriva Oisam. Oisam. Only the Sa'ir Dvash, which is, how do you translate Sa'ir and Dvash into a carbon? Which karbanos are considered Sa'ir and Dvash? Sa'ir is the Shtei Alechem, as the Gemara is going to say in a minute. And the Dvash is the Bikurim, the fruits. It's not just the dates, the fruits. So Ha'isam the Rabbi Lach, Kevesh, Kimizbeach. The ramp is considered part of the Mizbeach for those 2 things. But not other things. And Mameli says Potter, if you put anything else on the ramp, it's not considered the Mizbeach. Rabbi Yochanan, who says, he's marba, he's not memayit. So what does Oisam come to be memayit? What does it come to take away? Oh, if I okay, we'll say in a second. Maybe an individual, a guy comes to the Beis Hamikdash, he says, I saw a beautiful thing, they bring 2 breads on Shavuos, I also want to bring 2 breads as a nedava. The Korea and he bought, and he's menadiv, so now he's forced to bring it. Moitzes Fasach Tishma Vasisa. You have to keep your word. It's a plural lashon. Takrivu only tzibor marti lecha v'lo yachid. The individual cannot bring the 2 lechem. Yachar yeah yachid maybe. You know what? Okay, so you as an individual Reuven cannot bring it. Maybe MDY could get together, and as a community, as a mishpacha, we'll bring shtei alechem. Because look, the community brings the Shtei Alechem on, maybe not MDY, maybe all Klal Yisrael. They bring it on Shavuos. So Rabbi Yechon does learn the word Oisam as a miut. No, you bring Shtei Alechem as the Shtei Alechem, the Shalmi Tzibur, together with the Shalmi Tzibur, but that's it. It's part of Shavuos, but you can, a chayva, not an adava. And what exactly are you going to bring from the Sa'ar and Dvash? Shtei Alechem in a Sa'ar, ubikurim min advash. As the Gemara, Shtei Alechem la'ikrim in adava, you just told me as an individual you cannot bring the two breads. Why not? Vatanya, if nemach chol Sa'ar, lama nemach kol Dvash. Now, without looking in the art scroll, please, without looking in the art scroll, without cheating, what's the Gemara asking right now? Im nemar kol Sa'ar, lama nemar kol Dvash. What's the Gemara's kasha? The Gemara asks, why does it say kol Sa'ar and why does it say kol Dvash? What do you mean why? Because one is sourdough and one is honey. So it's two different things that you can't bring on the Mizbeach. If it said Dvash, I wouldn't know you can't put sourdough on the Mizbeach. No, the Gemara's question is more on the word kol. Why does it say kol Sa'ar, kol Dvash? The word kol is extra. Vim nemar kol Dvash, lomo nemar kol Sa'ar. So one kol is enough. Because each one has a positive, and therefore I need the kol. Why? I would think you're allowed to put sourdough on the mizbeach. Why? Because you see in other situations in the Beis Hamikdash, you put sourdough on the mizbeach. Now, if you pause here for a second, where do we put sourdough on the mizbeach? Where? There's only one thing that I can think of right now, and that is the Shtei Alechem bin Nedava. The individual decided to bring Shtei Alechem. Why? Because that's sourdough. It cannot be, 1 minute, that's the Gemara's kasha. Why are you telling me that sourdough is, that two lechem is also for individual? Over here it says Mefurish, you're putting sourdough on the Mizbeach. Now it cannot be the sourdough that we bring on Shavuos, because that doesn't go on the Mizbeach. That the Kohanim eat. So what sourdough ever goes on the Mizbeach must be the two Shtei Alechem that the individual decided to donate it on his own. So, you're allowed to bring sourdough in the Beis Hamikdash, but fruit, you never see fruit on the Mizbeach. Menachos. But on the other hand, you see that fruit is mutter in the leftover of the mincha. But you don't have sourdough in mincha. Since each one has its own special thing, the Gemara is actually talking about a half a shear, as the Gemara is going to say soon. Kol comes to say even a part of it, that's the bottom of the amud. So over here also, Yechayiv on a half a shear of a fruit. Now, we're going back. What did you mean when you said that once in a while you could bring sourdough in the Beis Hamikdash? Lav, Shtei Alechem, the Karvan Nadava. Obviously, you're talking about the two breads that you bring on Shavuos. Somebody decided, the tzibur decided to bring it as a Nadava. And Rashi just points out it real quickly. It cannot be referring to the Shtei Alechem that everybody you mechuyev to bring on Shavuos. The Lekar of the Mizbeach, you don't put it on the Mizbeach ever. So the only thing that I could think of that goes on the Mizbeach and is sourdough is an adava of the Shtei Alechem, and you're telling me the Shtei Alechem is also to bring. Omer Avram loy. No. What I was trying to tell you is, since the Shtei Alechem come together with korbanos here, like the famous picture over here, Dutnufa, Avi, imagine doing on two. You did on one, you barely moved. Two. With the Shtei Alechem. Now, I don't know what he's doing over there. So Memela, I would think that you're not allowed to put these two korbanos on the Mizbeach. Why? Because they come with chametz. They're associated with the Shtei Alechem. The Brisker Rav says over here, you see that the Shtei Alechem and the sheep are actually one. Because the Gemara only asks from this. The Gemara doesn't, let's say, ask from Taida. Taida is 40 breads, and you have a carbon Taida. There's no zika, so to speak. That was just a funny lashon, zika. What? The borrowed lashon, yeah. Over here, because you do the tnufa together, and everything's together, they become like one. They become one unit. And since you cannot put part of that one unit on the Mizbeach. Why? Because it's chametz. You're not allowed to put so'er on the Mizbeach. So perhaps you can't put the carbon also on the Mizbeach. Well, no. Lo, the carbon man. Yachi asked the Gemara, but guess what? Fruit is also hutim klaloi. It has like it comes together with a carbon. It comes together with birds. Those gazalas. Remember? I told you to pay attention in the video. There's a better picture actually than while I was watching. But here, these guys are all they have birds. So you say the same thing. Says Gemara, the birds, they're oila. The cheap baskets go to the kohen. The Gemara over there says that basar aniyusa, azal, basar anya azal aniyusa, something like that. That in English they say the opposite. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. That's what it means. The poor get poor. The wealthy, they bring a nice a golden basket, so they get it back. The poor that come with the cheap basket, they lose their basket to the kohanim. Hanu, says the Gemara, no, these birds are not connected to the bikurim. Hanu la'ater bikurim huda'asu. It's unbelievable. Rabbi said, listen to this. The birds that are on top of the basket, shkoyach, those birds, they're there to beautify the bikurim. What if you bring some chatas bird and put it on the mizbeach? You're not supposed to put it on the mizbeach. That's similar to the sugi we just had. Until now we're talking about a chatas sheep that you're supposed to eat it, and instead of eating it, the kohen puts it on the mizbeach. It's a issa deraisa. But what about the bird? Instead of the kohen eating, he puts it on the mizbeach. You over the issa deraisa. What's the shaila? Now. Over here, none of it goes on the Mizbeach. You all decided, and you were right, that none of it goes on the Mizbeach. So in you can't be Mekayim that pasuk. What's the pasuk? The pasuk says if you put part of it on the Mizbeach, the leftover you're not allowed to put on the Mizbeach. But over here, by the bird, the entire thing doesn't go on the Mizbeach. Or Dilma kosher shmoi karban, by nami shmoi karban. Over here, the Torah calls a bird a carbon. Where does the Torah call a bird carbon? Look. It says mufurish. It's called carbon. Vainami shmoi carbon. Therefore, if it's called a carbon, maybe you know put it on the mizbeach. Omerlei kosher shmoi carbon. Yes. Vainami shmoi carbon. And this, in fact, is considered a bird. It's called a carbon. Ketanoi. No, I have to be strict with this rule. It's part of it has to go on the mizbeach in order to be over. As long as it's called a carbon. My benayu. And what would be the nafkamina between these two shittas? One of them is what we just said. Rav Chisda is a chatas ha'oifik benayu. Chatas ha'oif doesn't go on the mizbech at all. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, you wouldn't be chayiv. According to Rabbi Kiva, it's called the carbon chayiv. Rav Amar lo yikshem mitzoyrek benayu. The oil that goes with the mitzayra, the oil obviously none of it goes on the mizbech. So according to Rabbi Kiva, you'd be over. Why? The Tana Levi called karbanim the rabbis like shemesh al mitzayra because it's called a carbon. According to Rabbi Kiva, you'd be over if you put the mitzayra's oil on the mizbeach. Tana Rabban. Sorry about the aktiru. Ainli ella kuloi. Oh, how do you know that if you put part of the sourdough, a half a shear, or even a mashu, according to Abaya, how do you know that you're over? Tamalomer kol anything. Oh, sorry. Sorry about the Kdiru. Ainli ela kuloi. Mitzasim minayin. Tamalomer kol. Even part of it. A ruva minayin. How do you know if you mix the sourdough with matzah, let's say? It's a mixture. How do you know you're over? Tamalomer kikol. From the word ki. My kamar, what's going on here? Omar bayochi kamar. Sorry about the Kdiru. Ainli ela kizais. The shear is a kizayis. Chatzi zayis, how do I know a half a shear? Which, by the way, according to Abaya, half a shear means even a nothing. There's no such thing as a half a zayis. Half a zayis means a kolshu. It's either a zayis or less than a zayis. There's also a half a zayis. Tamaloymar kol. I'm pointing it out because by Rava, when he starts, his starting point is 2 zaysim. So half a 2 is 1 full zayis, which is a full shear. But But according to Abaya, our starting point is a zayis. So half of that is a mashu. You put a little, how do you call it? A crumb of, a speck of sa'ir on the mizbech, you'd be over. Tamalay makol. Eruv minayin, how do you know a mixture? Tamalay mar kiko. Rava amar, very similar but different. Hachiko amar, sabat taktir, same words. Ein li elo koimetz. Instead of saying kizayis, he says a kmitza. Chatzi koimetz minayin, how do you know I have a kmitza? Kmitza, you go like this with your fingers. Tamalay makol. Eruv minayin, tamalay kiko. Same limudim, same everything, but instead of saying the word kizayis, he says koimetz. But my community, so what's the nafkamina if you call it a kizayis or a kmitza? Abai, so abai yesh koimetz pachis mishnei zeisim. The way you read this Gemara is, since Abaya's starting point is less than 2 zaysim, less than 2, how much is half of less than 2? Let's call it 1 3/4. What's half of 1 3/4? I went to Panovich. What? 0.875. 0.875. You're right. 0.875. 7-8. 875. 0.875. Yeah, not 8. 0.875. So, see, the way you read it is, since your starting point is Pachas Mishnei Zeisim, it is 1 3/4, let's say. So, Memela, V'yeshak Torah Pachas Mishnei Zayis. The Torah tells you can do half. So, half was less than a full Zayis. It's 0.875 of a Zayis. V'yesh aktar b'chutz min zayis. You see that to be over an aktara, you're over even in less than a zayis. V'yesh means, and therefore. V'rava amar, going with that. V'rava ein koimetz pachas mishnei zaysim. No. Your kmitza must be at least 2 zaysim. There's a whole chazanish over here. You see that their hands were larger. How did a zayis fit in? A whole zach. Akopanim, kmitza has to be at least 2. So when the Torah says kol, which means half of 2 is 1. So you have at least 1 zayis. In order to be over an aktar, it has to be at least 1 zayis. Therefore, the aktar is a zayis. If your starting point is more than 2, so the half of 2 is 1. Itmar. Listen to this. The Torah says don't put sourdough on the mizbech, don't put honey, fruit on the mizbech. What if you put both of them on the mizbech? How many lavim are you over if you put both? So everybody's going to say, you're over 2. The Gemara says, no, you're going to be over on either 4 or none, 0. Or, I'm talking about in terms of malchus. How many malchus do you get? You get 4 malchus. Why? Says the Gemara, Hamal Messiah, I told you, if you just read it, it wouldn't be so much fun. But if you thought about it for a second, it makes it more interesting. Hamal Messiah, Midvash Agabe Mizbeach, Omerova, Loigim Mishum Sa'ar. That's Pashut. You get a Malchus for Sar. V'loigim mishum dvash. Loigim mishum iruvi Sar u'mishum iruvi dvash. We established on Omad Aleph that Yoiver kol. What was the lashon? Ki kol. The Yoiver iruvi minayin tamaloi ki kol for the key. So a mixture is aser. So in Mela, there's a mixture going from the Sar to the dvash, but also from the dvash to the Sar, which is super interesting. And Mamela, that one mixture, you're over on 4 things. First of all, in the mixture you have Sar, that's 1. In the mixture you have Dvash, that's 2. In the mixture you have Sar and Dvash. And you also have Dvash and Sar, 4. So we're like Mishum Dvash, like Mishum Sar, Mishum Dvash. Abaye Omar in Loikin Alav Shebeklalois. There's something called Lav Shebeklalois. Do not worry, because first of all, the sugi is over in 2 lines. There's a Mishnah starting in the definite test. A Lav Shebeklalois. So what's a Lav Shebeklalois? A Lav Shebeklalois means it's not a straightforward lav. It has other stuff to it. Agabanim, if the Torah says, as the Gemara is going to say soon, the Torah says, don't put a, how do you say chasim on a muzzle. Don't put a muzzle on an animal. It's very straightforward. It's 1 lav. Boom. That's it. But you start telling me, don't put sourdough on the mizbech. Oh, and don't put sourdough together with, that's already too much. Now you're being general. You're starting to say more stuff. Lav shebeklalis. So what does that mean? So what, you don't get anything or you get a little bit? No, you'll get the malchus that the Torah says don't put sourdough, you get. But sourdough with a mixture, that you're not going to get 2 for that. That's already too much. Listen to this. You don't get any malchus at all. Listen to here. Look at the Torah. The Torah says over here, Arboim yakenu, malchus. Look what it says in Pasuk Daled. Pasuk Daled says Leisachsim. So we make there's a comparison. Just like Leisachsim is very pashut, it's 4 words. Leisachsim shar b'dishay, when he's treading on the wheat, you shouldn't put a muzzle. So too any other lav has to be very pashut, the straightforward lav. Once you start mixing more things and giving it more, you're not allowed to mix the sar with the dvash and the dvash with the sar. Then you're not chayiv anything. It's not a single lav. Kilav de chasima. Rabboisai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDY.com.